Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Jason Hunt here, inviting you to join us every Saturday morning for news, the week's headlines in science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, video games, plus Comic-Con updates and the weather, and the occasional interview along the way. We call it Good Morning Multiverse. We hope you join us every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right here on Sci-Fi for Me TV.
And that's probably going to get me a strike, but I don't care. I lived through the Elton John days. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Oh, doing great. I was going to say, I like your new intro. Can we get the Marissa Tomei for Aunt May?
Oh, well, we can do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll look that up. I have a bunch of comic characters in circles, and I just change the word balloon around every now and then.
Yeah.
Whenever I change the guest name.
It was always so funny when they started putting her in as Aunt May in the Marvel comics, because I always said that before there were never spoken the words in the English language of Aunt May is hot.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody ever said that until then.
Well, you know what? I was going to say it makes sense. It doesn't make sense for Aunt May to be hot, but it didn't really make sense for her to be that old.
Yeah, I know. Spinster.
Yeah. Peter was a teenager, which, would mean that his aunt should be roughly around the age of his mom, maybe a few years older, a few years younger.
Yeah, Aunt May, not Grandma May.
Exactly. A great Grandma May, the way she was portrayed.
Yeah.
So, but we do have a guest with us tonight here, and you have invited your publisher and I'm looking for the right word, business partner in a lot of these things. We have with us tonight Alex from Cirsova Magazine. Alex, welcome to the show.
Are you there, Alex?
We've
Hey,
made some improvements to the studio.
Well, I mean, you had him playing the audio thing, so I couldn't say hi. So.
Gotcha.
I know. You should have been able to talk over it, but I'm taking advantage of what StreamYard is allowing us to do. But one thing that it keeps doing is it keeps resetting itself. Those audio files default to having loop turned on. I'm like, no, I don't want the loop on. So I had to scramble to find the button and unclick it.
And you never want to talk over applause. Let it go.
Yeah, of course. But topics. Alex was asking me before the show what topics we had in mind tonight, and kind of a last minute panic. I'm like, oh wait, but I did have one that I wanted to throw out to you, Michael, since you've worked with CGC, but I don't know in what capacity.
Well, I was there at the very dawn of the CGC. Steve Jeppy called a meeting to rewrite the grading scale. He didn't tell us anything about CGC. We went there thinking, okay, well, the grading scale needs to go from 100 point to a 10 point. And he didn't tell us why. Well, the first day we find out is because the CGC people are getting ready to start up, and they were the ones who were wanting our scale. Of course, they ended up never using it. They made up their own scale, which they won't publish because they don't want to get caught on their own inaccuracies. But, so the first day was, a whole morning of just arguing about what to do. Finally, I let everybody kind of argue out, and I said, listen, guys, it's really simple. 100-point scale, 10-point scale. Let's just knock off a 0, move the decimal. And everybody's like, well, I guess you could. And Jippy's like, okay, lunchtime, everybody. And then when we came back, and that's basically what we did, 8-point and down. 8-point and up, we're still arguing what constitutes a 9-point, a 9.2, a 9.6, 8, and so on. That's something is still going on today. Well, then the next day, we met with the CGC people, and they were telling us what their plans were, how they're going to kind of make comics, a collectible grading system like you had with coins and trading cards, this and that. And they had a lot of the crowd pumped up. I mean, there were some people like, what, turn it into a trading card, basically. And, I kind of agree with that. But, mostly they had the crowd going with them like, yeah. And one guy's like, I'm going to slap my house. I'm going to slap my car. I'm going to slap my wife. And then they got to the point where they said, well, we're going to call all the new modern age, because we're going to have different slabs, golden age, this and that. And modern age comics will be called the Wizard Age.
Oh, no.
Lead balloon hit the pool. I mean, it was just like a push. And guys were just immediately out the doors, straight to the airport, walked out. And everybody's like, no, we don't want that. And so then when it came time for interaction with all the retailers, it was one guy after they get up there on the podium going, Wizards, another word S. Wizards, yet another word S. One ends with T, one ends with KS. Just nobody liked Wizard. And you can see they're just rolling their eyes. And finally, my turn, they said, hold on, guys, listen. You don't like Wizard. We get it. We don't want to hear any more about it. This deal is done. We're signing the papers tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, I know you just said you didn't want to hear any more about it. And then you see the rolling their eyes like, Jesus, is this ever going to end? But then I turned to the rest of the crowd. I said, listen, everybody, how many of you here remember Wizard label supplies? Exact same price as generic brand, but nobody bought the Wizard brand. They bought the generic brand because Wizard has a name that says, I don't trust them. And, the generic would outsell the Wizard brand. And you can see their eyes got really big, and they were like, what's this? And so I said, I told the rest of the room, I said, listen, guys, and then I turned back to the CGC guys. I said, listen, I know you're thinking we're just the Overstreet guys. Of course, we don't like Wizard. But that's not what's going on here. We're doing an intervention trying to keep you guys from stepping this big old pile of doo-doo. Well, I got a laugh, first moment of levity since I said the name Wizard. And Jeppy's immediately up, okay, lunch, everybody. I'm like, I guess I'm the lunch signal guy.
Every time you say something good, he's like, we're done.
All right, that's it. Everybody take a break and think about that. And those CGC guys just made a beeline to me. Goes, tell me a little bit more about those, those Wizard label supplies. When I got back from the trip, first call I got, it was the CGC guys one more time. Now, tell us one more time about those Wizard label supplies. Obviously, they never did that deal. And Steve Borak, one of the guys who was part of that initial launch group, saw me in 2002 down at MegaCom when I was selling a bunch of my Wild Stars comics. And he's like, hey, this is the guy who told us about those Wizards label supplies. Here, let us slab you stuff free just to say thank you.
Very cool. Yeah, Wizard, did you ever use the Wizard price guide in pricing your comics?
No, that thing was a joke. The way that people decided if a retailer or seller at a convention was a crook or not, if he was a crook if he bought by Overstreet and sold by Wizard.
Yeah. The story I heard was that who was the guy behind Wizard? That
Seamus.
Seamus, Gareb Seamus, that
Mhm.
his mom owned a comic shop, and a
Oh,
lot
really?
of what drove the pricing up in the price guide was what did mom have on hand that she needed to get rid of.
I know. There'd be books be hot as heck, and we don't have any. It's not worth anything. And other books that were just dog books are, that's going up in value. And there's a lot of people who thought that would was a guide to shop by and sell by. And matter of fact, back around the same time, that's when the trading card market just completely collapsed. And I don't know if you remember that, but it just all of a sudden, and used to, trading card shops roamed the area like the buffalo. They were just a herd of them everywhere.
You had one down the street from you.
Exactly, yeah. So they all decided they were going to become comic book stores overnight. Well, they didn't know anything about what they're doing. It's like if I tried to become a trading card store overnight. Well, they were using Wizard as their guide for values and what to do. So they'd come down, buy me all out of this stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll see you all you want. And they were just making mistake after mistake. And I had a customer tell me one time he walked in, and the guy would point at Wizard, goes, "Man, that stuff they say sells, it don't sell." Yeah. And it drove them all out of business for the most part. It really did.
Yeah, I remember Warp Drive used to use Wizard for their pricing.
Yeah, he was gone a long time ago, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask about the CGC is because there's been something in the comic book community news in the past month here or so called acetate gate. Are you have you heard that term thrown around yet?
Mm-mm.
Well, there's a comic book store that does the convention circuit. It's called Black Flag, and what they did was, what they were doing was they were getting these books from Marvel that were unique to their store. The extra special variants. And then when they went to conventions, they had this other artist do a new cover, and they were stapling the cover onto the book.
Okay,
so another set of staples, 4 more holes in the spine, and then CGC was grading them 9.5, 9.6, and people weren't aware that these were not official books. These were not, released by Marvel this way. They were altered by the comic company.
Home cooking.
Yeah, a little bit. Marvel had to come out with a statement saying, hey, when we give you these books, you are not authorized to make alterations to the book.
Yeah. What you do in your own store, that's one thing, but to advertise internationally, yeah, that's another.
Yeah, and it was a lot of different controversies all boiled into one from different directions. I mean, first of all, there was the alteration of the book, which on the face of it, it's your book. You bought it, do what you want with it. Technically, author signing the cover is altering the book.
When a retailer puts in a plastic bag, he's altering the book, but as long as that's just for sale in your store, yeah. I ran into that when I was making prototype graphic novels, and I was asking Marvel DC, you guys going to get mad at me for doing this? And they both told me, that, hey, it's you repackage any way you want to, as long as you don't advertise it nationally, we don't care. And then of course I asked them the next question that was obvious, like, well, why aren't you guys doing this? This is back in the early '80s, and these things sell as fast as I can make them. Both Marvel and DC told me there will never be a market for reprint collections. Yeah.
Now we can't get
nowadays.
It is all that sells.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not the collections of the new stuff.
Yeah, give people what they want to read.
Clarence, you want one of those 9.5s of the comic that CGC graded that wasn't an official comic? Well, you might be able to get one.
Yeah.
But part of it was like, they were advertising, hey, we're going to be at the convention, we'll have these copies. People were pre-ordering, and then like YouTubers and other influencers were like going straight to the head of the line and buying in bulk in front of these people who had bought tickets to get in line and buy the books. So that didn't set well with people.
No.
And then of course, yeah. And I think CGC has a separate guideline. They've got like a color coding where it's like, hey, this is 9 point whatever or 8 point whatever, but because we're coloring it blue instead of yellow or yellow instead of blue, it means that it's good, but it's in an altered condition. It's not the original book, so that people are aware that this $1,000 book is now maybe this $200 book because somebody put a new art cover on it. No such thing as 9.5. Seriously? No. I've seen 9 point.
We
I've
do
seen
10,
it
9.2,
9.4,
9.4, 9.6, 9.8.
Yeah.
They don't like
It's
the
like
odd
earthquakes.
numbers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I had never really paid that much attention.
Well,
I just assumed,
I had seen a 9.9.
So I've never heard of that one.
I've seen a couple at cons, but they don't pop up very often because usually whatever flaw makes it imperfect off the factory press is enough to knock it down to a 9.8 instead of a 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always been
have there
9.8
been?
or 10. Yeah,
I was going to say I've not even seen any 10s. So
but like I said,
I've
that's
seen
going on.
I've seen people with pictures of 10s. I've never actually seen any 10s.
you'd almost have to manufacture the book in the slab so that nothing touches it.
Well, I mean, if they, you might see some 10s if somebody does a big run and sends a bunch of them to CGC, and so like they might find a few out of the pile that gets sent over to them. And that's if you're sending to them straight from the press. They might find a few that they'll call 10s.
Yeah, it had to be right off the press too, I guess, because
It,
we've had
it comes down to like how much paper flaking there is around the staple and stuff like that.
yeah, because I know one creator who's done you probably know who I'm talking about here, Alex. She had some books that were done for an independent crowdfunder, and she got deep into the stack, and suddenly there were these little triangular dents pressed into the cover.
I heard about that.
Book after book after book, and it was some device clamping the book that pulled off the thing, and it was pressing down so hard that it was leaving a mark in it. Pretty clear indentation.
The nature of printing is not conducive to perfect condition books.
Market, no. It breaks my mind that Ingram Spark has decided to get into comics because oh my gosh, I mean they blocked me and fired me as a client because I would post pictures of how mangled the books they would send me were. When I got
they're not great at shipping at all.
When I got a hardcover book that like the interior pages were all like mashed in, smashed together, like right out of the box. That was when I was just like, look, this is completely unacceptable. And then I called them on it, but they got tired of me calling them on it, and eventually just said, you know what, we're done with you.
Yeah. I got the email that said, hey, we have the comic book trim size, and I replied back to him like, okay, longtime customer, if you're going to get into comic books, you need to take care of your shipping.
Oh yeah,
Michael
what you do for hardcover books, you can't do for comics.
We would have 20% damages and higher on all of the stuff that we would do together with it.
Yeah, just slap in a box and don't put any packing. It'll be fine. It's just going by UPS.
I get packing now, but I told him, said, look, you need to look at what the other comic book printers are doing for the small press, like
because I'm, for the most part, I'm not doing comics or collectibles. I'm a bit more lenient on what I would consider like acceptable dings and damage on a book, but Ingram Spark their stuff would still just be beyond the pale in how damaged their stuff would be on the corners and just across the board.
Well, they're still treating it like a book, right? I mean, it's like when Random Penguin.
They're treating it like a book, but you expect like maybe a little bit of dings on a book, but you don't expect 20 books out of a package of 60 to like have all the corners crimped, curled, solid creasing on the covers. That's what you get from Ingram Spark.
Now,
I've been lucky then. I've not had that problem. I mean, our copies of books have been coming out square and flat.
They must be sending you stuff from a different printer than we did, or maybe they did finally make the changes. But
well, you're probably using a different trim size, so you probably are going to a different printer. Now, do you want to know what the very first graphic novel that they ever published was?
I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you go with it.
Right here, Wildstar, Book of Circles. This is the first one they'd ever done. So I called them up, told them I was getting ready to do this. It collects all my comics from the 80s and to the 2001, 2002. And so I was calling up, I want to do this. And they're like, well, we've never done something like that before because everything they'd done was all text before. Maybe an image or two, but very rarely. And so I had to have a production meeting with him. And so as I'm talking to him, now I'm a former journeyman printer. spent years in printing management, in purchasing, all sorts of stuff, scheduling. We ran my own print shop, and so I was using terminology that is common for offset printing. Well, this is digital printing, so they weren't completely familiar with what I was saying. So at one point, I'm talking about ink coverage, and when you talk, and it's a black and white book, and so when you talk about heavy coverage of black ink, you just say heavy blacks. So the meetings go along and say, okay, do you guys have any problems printing heavy blacks? Deathly silence. And after a while, you finally hear the sales lady goes, I think he means heavy black ink coverage. And all of a sudden, all this, there was, laughter, like, oh, yeah, so that's what he meant, like, hey, what did you guys think I was saying? What kind of picture did you think I was putting in here? So that was their first experience with graphic novels, but they kept going after it.
Yeah, they've, I can show, George, I know you're out there in the chat still, but I can show this is one that they printed just within the past 2 months here, which is full color, oversized. It's a big book.
Now, a lot of the color comics I've gotten from Ingram or from people who've used it, the color coverage isn't really what it needs to be a lot of the time. It's too diffuse, so it leaves just kind of this weird, blurry, muted look. And so I've been kind of disappointed by some of the books that I've gotten from them. But the one thing I will say is when people have done digital restorations of Golden Age and Silver Age comics, they actually look better on the Ingram Spark print than they do on the screen, because you get that sort of muted, desaturated coloring that you got from the yellowed newsprint of the comics from that era. So for those, it actually looks better than the digital recolorings, but that's the only exception that I can really point to for Ingram stuff.
George Peter Gatsis is also from the print world, spent a lot of time there. So he's done a crowdfunded book of this graphic novel in a bigger size than this big one here. And what he's done, because he, exactly like you said, the coverage wasn't there, he ordered this trade paperback and he did a run of like 12 of them just to pass out to different people and have them take pictures of the pages and compare where they were printed, because they got printed in different places, and what the ink coverage was like. And then he did the hardcover and did the same thing, just a very small print run, had us take pictures where they were printed, and he just basically did this until he whipped Ingram Spark into shape. Yeah. He got them to, persistently have the same settings everywhere with the color. So then he was ready to print the oversized graphic novel, which he's now doing the interior artwork on. But they are hard to reach. You can't just call Ingram Spark.
No.
You got to use the form and then hope that something.
Well, and they'll only call you on the phone if there are real problems. I actually had a phone conversation with them where they were finally like, we need to talk with you on the phone, and they brought in the 20-year man to tell me that I'd made the CEO cry by the things that I'd said about their quality control.
Well, there's a fix for that.
There are things for that. You guys could do it right and stop banging up all our books every time we'd order from you. I mean, we're putting in orders for hundreds of books. We need at least 90% of them to come in a shippable quality.
Yeah. Now, see, this is a floppy that Ingram Spark did. This is from Denali's.com, The Immortal Mask, and it's black and white.
If it's black and white, it'll look fine. I mean, I haven't ever had any problems with any of the black and white stuff we did through them. When they did the stuff for Bad Axe, it looked beautiful. It had the right coverage amounts. It looked great. But their color printing process doesn't use the ink coverage that's necessary, so it gives it that diffuse look.
They sent me a number of copies of 1, 2, and 3, and the reason I have these out is because guess what? There was at least one of each one that was damaged. So there's like a crease across here that's real hard to see on this camera.
I don't see it.
Yeah, in person,
That's another one of the things is since everything is glossy, they always want pictures. Sometimes it's hard to take pictures of all the damages. You got to angle the light just right so that you can see that crease in the reflection.
You got to get it from the edge or something. Kevin Philpott, the guy behind Glenn and Monsterland. By the way, if you guys haven't seen that book,
that
I
Glenn
have
and
copies.
Monsterland is a fantastic book. It's one of the best crowdfund books I've got recently. There have been a few that I liked the idea behind, but just weren't quite there. But Glenn really delivered on that. And the next time they do a crowdfund, I'm totally planning on actually backing for some original artwork. I was a little hesitant at first because not familiar with the creator, and stuff on crowdfund don't always have the best track record.
Right.
But
I've got
it's a good book. Pick it up if you can.
Absolutely. I got the one with the print. So I'm right behind my monitor here on the wall, staring at me is the art print that of Glenn that Carla Russo. As to your question, Glenn, Kevin, I can't really say that the Ingram Spark is better than Mixam. I've heard bad things about Mixam as well because Mixam's sort of a farm it out.
The one printer that I've seen a lot from in terms of comics is Kablam. I know that a lot of crowdfund indies have used them. They do short runs. They also do print on demands. I've ordered several indie comics from them. I got a big stack that I still need to go through, but their actual print quality is superior to the stuff that you're getting from the big two. But it's heavy paper, it's glossy, it feels nice and sturdy. The only downside is, since it's printed right away, that ink is going to smell pretty bad when you first get those books. But the actual quality of the stuff that Bland does is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that Ingram Spark does get their act together on the comics, though, because I know hope springs eternal. But they've got one advantage over all these other print-on-demand places, and that's that they are global. If you are
for a while, we had to do this weird thing where it was cheaper for us to put in the order through their British printers and pay in pounds and have it converted and have it sent through the Royal Post to Canada, because it was cheaper to send stuff to Canada and Australia from Britain and the Royal Post than it was to have it printed in the US and sent it to Canada. So that was one workaround. But the other printers that we use, it's not a big deal because Amazon has the global distribution, Lulu has the global distribution, and you don't have to jump through the weird hoops that and on the back end that Ingram made you do for it.
Yeah, and with hopefully with Ingram, if you've got 30 customers in Australia, you can say send 30 copies to a distribution hub in Australia, send 25 copies to a distribution hub in the UK, and now it's all local printing, local shipping.
Yeah,
I think it's got a ways to go yet, at least a year.
The distribution is always the kicker for this sort of thing. And the thing that we experienced with Ingram Spark, of course, is since they send it to Amazon to warehouse, they could also get damaged in the warehouses, and you don't know where the damage happens. And so if somebody gets a banged up copy that they ordered off Amazon that Amazon was selling as new, who did they blame? They blame me, even though I had no role in things except for uploading the digital files at some point down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all I really got to do is just send it back to Amazon. Amazon will take care of the replacement.
Yeah. But that's not how people's minds tend to work. The first thing they do is they let the publisher or the author know and say, "What can you do to fix this?"
Yeah,
that's true with us too, because we're a distributor, and when somebody gets something that's damaged, there's a 50-50 chance that they'll either let me know, and then I tell the creator, "Hey, I got to send them another copy," or they let the creator know, and then he or she calls me up and says, "Hey, you need to send them another copy."
Yeah, when I was first advertising my stores, I did a lot of television very early on. And that new Star Trek Next Generation was getting ready to come out. So I locked in for a year of advertising before it had any ratings back on it. And so I was getting a sweetheart deal on that. But then I pulled my ads because they were running on I think it was a Sunday night. Well, it was on the same channel as NFL football. And so when NFL football run long, bam, they'd miss the first 20 minutes of the show. So who are the people calling when they're angry on the weekend? Me. Like it was my fault. Like I was doing it, and I
Because
finally,
you advertise on them.
yeah, I was the only guy they could come to. So they're going to go for the handiest guy. And I finally said, just pull the ads. I'm tired of all the angry phone calls because you always run the football game into the start of the show.
Yeah, they didn't preempt it. We join it now in progress.
Yeah. Now after you don't know what's going on, now we join it. Yeah, in progress.
Well, that doesn't happen anymore, I guess, because people just watch what they want to watch on streaming services, and that includes football.
Yeah, I tell you what, when I was buying my television advertising, I had a kind of an inside card because I also had a big dish satellite where there you could actually go through the skies and see anything back then. And so I would go to the same satellites where they would download the programs to record at their stations and then broadcast. So I'd be like watching about a week ahead. So, hey, that's going to be a great episode. That's the one with the Trouble with Tribbles on Deep Space Nine. Hey, I want to put a couple ads in this one. Any reason why? I just feel like it.
You had the inside. It's like insider trading, but totally legal.
Yeah, this is okay. Put me a couple more ads on that one. Of course, everybody's recording it, making their copy, and so those ads were playing for years.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Back to VHS day.
Yeah. Of course, some people would sit in front of it and like pause those commercials and then try to catch it and come back. But
you had to have your timer to guess when the program was going to come back, and they didn't always have it at a set amount of time. So you had to be right there with your thumb, otherwise you'd miss the opening back into it.
Yeah, and if you had a cheap VCR, you'd hit the thing at the right time, and then the VCR would think about it. You'd hear the gear switch, and then it would record, and you'd like, it's 3 seconds gone by already.
Yeah. So that was hard to do on the VA. I've tried it myself, so that was hard to do.
And at this point, one of the best parts about going back and watching those 20, 30-year-old tapes is seeing the commercials from back then and be like, man, different times.
Yeah, I've got a page on my website where I show all my old commercials back from the 80s and the 90s and this and that. People will put a comment on there every now and then. Wow, I remember that was running 30 years ago.
I remember the comics aren't just for kids anymore.
Yeah, that was one of my early ones.
And Black Orchid.
Uh-huh. That was actually the first professional commercial DC ever made. It was on Co-op. Now, the way that Co-op worked is, they'd pay 20% and they'd give you a professionally made commercial. Problem was, you only got like about 5% of the time at the very end to plug yourself. So that's when I just started making my own commercials. That way, hey, it cost me 100%, and I got 100% advertising too.
And the thing is, I remember that commercial looking like it was a local type commercial too, like the local furniture store, the local car mart. It was that quality of commercial. But 30 years later, I still remember it.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Who'd have thought we'd have been nostalgic for the commercials? Who'd have thought we'd have gone nostalgic for the commercials? But people are. I hear the old radio commercials now on the on the radio programs that I listened to from the 40s and the 50s. So I'm hearing the old "I want my Maypo" and ads like that.
Early commercials had the first X-Men on TV.
So you beat the cartoon out.
Yeah, because that was some footage for an original trial that they did for it, and so that was what I was putting in a commercial. And then the show came out later.
And Marvel didn't have a problem with you using that footage?
It's your Co-op ad. That's where I got the footage from.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Yeah. They did co-ops too. So yeah, when you first start out, you do all those co-ops to save as much money as you can. Then later you realize the money I'm paying for the amount of time I actually get, I'm doing more advertising for all my competition too. I'm just plugged in at the very end. So that's why I just started making all my own specific commercials just shot in my stores.
It's kind of like the free comic book day thing. They make all the comic and then you get to stamp your.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That free comic book day. I quit advertising on their website because you had to buy all the gold sponsors, everything that they made. And then early on, I didn't mind doing it because, it was all appropriate. Well, then they started making adults only comics in the gold tier that you had to buy them all, so minimum quantity of every one. Well, I can't have those in my store, so I had to throw. I was zoned where I can't even have them on the premises, so I was having to throw these away. Well, I'm not a book burner, and I was like, guys, quit force me to buy books I can't use, or I'm just going to stop, ordering those. Well, finally, one year I just said, that's it. I'm just not going to order them this time. I wasn't on the website, and that was the best free comic book day event we ever had. And all my employees were like, please don't ever be on that website again. Because what happened was there was a certain negative crowd. They were just like, gimme crowd. And they'd come into my store, they'd be complaining I'd limit like 4 books to a person, and
Yep.
be like, well, we go into Hastings, we can get everything we want, grab all we want. Of course, you got to go in the first 20 minutes because they're out pretty quick. I'm giving out books the whole day. I'm giving out 10, 100 times more than Hastings is, and they're telling me about how much better they are than me. And they were just negative, insulting, and people just get their books, get out because there's this negative vibe these people brought in. Well, when those people weren't in the crowd that time because they were just using that as a list of where they were going to hit, all of a sudden I was selling stuff and people were saying these weird things like, thank you, and I appreciate it. And it just became a super positive experience. So I was never, ever on that Free Comic Book website again. And actually, I had somebody file a complaint with the North Little Rock Police against me for Free Comic Book Day. Said I wasn't giving away enough free stuff. Had a police detective come in. He goes, I know they're giving to you for free because I read it on their website. I said, look, go to frequently asked questions. It's like number 18, real tiny print. It says we pay a nominal fee. Buddy, when you multiply a nominal by thousands, it ain't so nominal.
No, it's not. And non-comic shop retailers, they don't know how to handle free. I mean, Hastings at the time, they could afford it. They understood the concept because it was advertised in that way. But way back before Free Comic Book Day, do you remember the DC sampler?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it was like the fall preview guide. It's like, here's a full comic book. Every page is an ad for something else we're going to do. Well, I went into 7-Eleven because it was the only place that sold comics that I could get to. And my friend wanted a copy of the DC sampler. And it said right there in the upper left-hand corner in big black block letters, free. But the cover itself was a montage of all the different covers of the books that were going to be coming out. And they all had prices on them. I mean, they were the full, UPC code and everything on these little things. And the lady just picked one. She's like, $1.95. I'm like, no, free. She's like, no, $1.95. I'm like, free, $1.95. I'm like, don't buy it. Yeah. And I say lady. She was probably a high school kid at the time, and I was younger than that.
So old lady, yeah.
Yeah, very old lady. So, you don't know what she's talking about. She don't know comic books.
That's it. Yeah, I remember when you used to have to do go places like that, and you go into a 7-Eleven, find the copies you wanted, take them up to the counter, and they'd slide it right through the Coke spill. Last customer, I'm like, I don't want those now. Why? They're just a little wet.
Yeah. Well, people treat them like magazines. Again, like Penguin Random House was doing that first week of shipping from Marvel. They treated them like magazines, not like collectibles. They weren't used to shipping collectibles.
Yeah.
Pixel Trader in the house. Yo, man, good to see you.
Yeah, the other thing I like when you'd go to a convenience store, something like that, to buy your comic back before you had a place to go. And, you buy multiple copies of something like, oh, you're going to have a read-along at the church? Because they couldn't understand why somebody would buy more than one copy of the same book. It just was beyond them. I remember in Wichita, I finally found a newsstand that would carry all the comics. Now, they did it kind of weird, though. New comic book release day, they put out one title at a time. Everybody grabbed their copy. So you're waiting. Oh, here comes another title. Everybody grabbed their copy. They finally said, okay, that was the last one. Well, then we'd all turn and head for the register at the same time. And there was a new girl there training on the register one day. And she's seeing stack after stack of comic come through. And she turns to the woman trainer and goes, what's the deal with all the comics? And the woman goes, oh, it's new comic release day. It's when all the addicts come in.
Yeah, well, she no lies detected there.
She wasn't wrong. But the way they did is like you had to wait. Oh, that's the last one. There's more coming. Okay, now we'll hit for the thing. But before then, you had to go to every 7-Eleven and grocery store because there was no place that got one of everything.
Hello, Shifter. Hi, Comic Skate. There's Comic Skate here. There's non-Comic Skate here. We're a big tent. Yeah. She wasn't wrong though. We were very addicted to our fix. But you know what? They say 12 weeks of not doing something is enough to break a habit, and COVID lasted longer than 12 weeks.
That broke a lot of people's habits. And, I'll tell you what, I just did all my mail orders this week for my monthly orders there. I got some I do weekly, some I do bi-weekly, and one part of the month, the other part of the month. This was my big part of the month. I shipped everything out. I never saw so many people have trouble making their payments as I have in this last week. Credit cards being declined, credit cards being stolen. Just people write me, hey, I got the money right now. Can you wait and charge me later? I have never seen this many people in financial distress as I have in the last week.
That's
disconcerting. Yeah. I mean, people out there are just having a hard time buying comic books even right now. it's tough out there.
I mean,
Yeah.
meantime, I don't think I still probably don't have enough comics for it to be worth it for you to ship them to me.
Yeah, I've only got a couple for you because they're not making your titles right now.
Yeah, I think I'm down to maybe one or two that haven't ended. And
Yeah, one of those is a facsimile. So,
oh yeah, that's right. There is that facsimile that's dropped.
I'm down to one.
Yeah, maybe I can come and drop off those extra copies of Wild Stars for you and pick them up while I do, because I don't know how much room I got. Because I've got 2 Kickstarters worth of books coming into my house, and having even one box out of the way would help.
Sure.
All right, we'll work that out later.
I've got a gigantic stack here of comics that I've got to read, but when it comes down to what I'm getting at the comic store, I'm down to one title. I'm just getting the Flashpoint Beyond.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
And I picked up number 5 this week, and guess what I learned on the first 3 pages of Flashpoint Beyond, number 5.
It was all a dream.
No. Oh, that would have been no. Actually, like Flashpoint Beyond, because Jeff Johns is writing it, and if he were to be given his head and let to be the CCO at DC again, might fix a few things. But on the first 3 pages, it's a televised debate between Mr. Terrific and one of the Time Masters. And we learned that, Dark Crisis is over. The Justice League is back. Everything's fine. This is what happened.
Oh, wow. Talk about continuity disasters.
I'm like, I don't think Dark Crisis is over yet.
It's not. Yeah, 5 is just coming out, I think, this week.
So yeah, I mean, he went to great lengths to explain what happened. It's like, there you go.
Get your bets in Vegas if there was such a thing. Hey, one thing on DC, I will say, though, is that we've always had a lot of concern because DC's going through a pretty rough patch and really been scaling back on their books, this and that. But they just announced in the last week that they're going to expand their distribution system to a place called Universal Distribution.
Yeah, now they're the people who own Lunar.
I don't know about that part, but they're in Canada.
Yeah, they're. I read up on that story, and they own Lunar. So basically, Lunar was like doing just comic books, and now it's filtering up to where Universal's like, we ship everything everywhere, whereas Lunar was sort of like, we ship into the U.S. from the U.S.
That's kind of odd because of the announcement they said to me was like, you can still buy your books from Lunar if you want to, or you can get them from Universal.
You can.
There's 2 different options. I'm like, well, why would I want to buy from a Canadian distributor? I'm going to stick with the guy in the U.S. But that's the way the press release was written. So that's strange. So, but the good news is, if you're on a moon or in Ganymede out there somewhere, Universal Distribution is now available for DC Comics. So if you're stuck on the moon,
it's not Universal if you can't get there. Where do I have that? I thought I had that same email because I know I read it. And I didn't just go out and look it up somewhere else. Of course, in my email, if I look for like Universal, I'm getting all the Universal pictures. I can't find it. But, I'm pretty sure that it was the parent company of who they were already using.
Oh, hey, in the last episode, I didn't say anything about what happened with my Wild Star 7 yet, had I?
Think so.
No, because you hadn't cashed the check.
Well, I actually still haven't. But do you want to make the announcement?
Yeah, next year we are going to be serializing Wild Star 7, the Gold Exigency. That's one of our really big announcements for next year. We've got a lot of big stuff going on in 2023.
Yeah.
We've got Michael's newest novel. We are coming into the final stretch of Jim Brayfogel's Mongoose and Meerkat. It'll be the final 3 stories in that series. Really big news. We bought a story from Bill Willingham.
I heard that.
Yeah,
that is big news.
Yeah, apparently he reads the magazine and was like, hey, I like the magazine. You're interested in a story? It's like, sure, I'd love a story. I'll try not to freak out and fanboy too hard until after I've read it and we can get all the business taken care of. I'll confess that I haven't read Fables, but I'm a big Elementals fan. Michael sold me on his Warriors 3 run. That was a really good. In fact, that's probably one of the few Marvel books that I actually have and like is his Warriors 3 book. Other big stuff we've got going on. We've got the next Dreamlord story from Adrian Cole, who is a journeyman science fiction writer who's been working since the 70s. And, one fan asked him, would you be interested in continuing this sci-fi trilogy from the 70s? He said, sure. And so we've been running those stories ever since.
Cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, we want to, that's why you're here, to tell us what you guys are doing at Cirsova.
We've got.
And if you've got any graphics to share, feel free.
Yeah, we've got Mark Pellegrini back doing one for our Gothic and horror issue in the fall. So we've got a lot of really big stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, the book is doing very well. The reviews are just fantastic, off the chart.
Yeah, we're finally at the point where we're doing about $600 to $700 revenue a month. So that's the point where the magazine is finally about to become self-sustaining.
That's what you want. Yeah. I'd like
on
to do
Amazon,
that.
To content, art, editing, an issue of Cirsova costs about $1,600 to $1,800 to put together. Now, we may be cutting back a little bit on the interior art just because we were really flush this year with the Cosmic Courtship money, but we're still going to have Dark Philly doing illustrations for the rest of Mongoose and Meerkat. We still are probably going to be having Usa Nekarin do one or two extra illustrations for us sometime throughout the year. I don't know how much else we have because we're trying to be a little bit conservative on the budget because I had to have a waterline redone this summer, and that just kind of wiped out all my money.
Well, you're in Arkansas. You want to keep that running water. Otherwise, you got to start using the outhouse again.
Yeah.
Shifter, I do not know if Lunar gets their books direct from the printer. I do know that DC started printing in Canada pretty much with New Teen Titans #1, the Baxter series. I mean, that was the whole shift, was they were moving from Spartan printing to someplace in Canada because of cheaper paper and easier delivery. So I would assume that printing in Canada and sending to Lunar.
Well, see, Sparta was a letterpress print. That was the old, Gutenberg Bible style of printing. And when they went to Canada, they were going to offset printing. That's when all of a sudden you started getting screen colors and computer coloring, and that's when the quality of the books just took a quantum leap in quality.
Oh yeah, and the big thing was like, look, we can print all the way to the edge. Bleeds off the edge of the paper. I'm like, You couldn't do that before? Didn't know that. I was a kid.
Yeah, when you go back and look at some of those old screen color comics, it's amazing how good those color artists were when they were just working with 4-color screens. How well they could do the colors.
I could figure out blue, yellow, and red, but what was the fourth color?
Black.
Black? Oh, black. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you get the cyan, that's the blue, magenta, that's kind of the red, and then you get yellow, red, blue, and the black for the background. And of course, you also have a fifth color, the color of the paper, white.
Yes, but you didn't have to print with that one.
No, that one you got free.
You got that one for free. John Byrne took advantage of that for a one-page fight. I think it was like a Snowbird versus Wendigo. Yeah.
In a blizzard.
Yeah.
I think he followed that one up with the Shroud fighting somebody in a cave or something like that.
Yes. We'll make up that print cost. We'll just put all black.
That's it.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think the first and only Ethan Van Sciver book I had was the one with Batman versus Dawnbreaker. It's like, it's an evil Batman whose power is darkness, so I'm just not going to draw half the panels.
Yeah, well, Dawnbreaker, that was the evil Green Lantern Batman.
Yeah.
I think Dawnbringer, I don't know. I did not pay attention to the death metal stuff. I was like,
First metal was good, death metal was trash.
Yeah. And then of course, the Batman Who Laughs just kept hanging around, and wouldn't go back to his own dimension like Mr. Mixit-Pitalik. It's like, we got, and that's part of what this 3-page debate was in Flashpoint Beyond, was Mr. Terrific saying, and it's multiverses and negative multiverses and blah 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 blah. And of course the Time Master's like, you're only dealing with half the equation. He's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, there's also hyper time. And it's, all these different timelines that branch off, they stay behind once they're created. So DC's like trying to have it all now. They've got their
Except they don't have any books going on in any of those storylines.
No, they don't. My God, they introduced multiversity, and I'm like, they had it right there where all they had to do is just like put an imprint, Earth 23, and have your Charlton characters in a Watchmen setting universe. That's what it was for, and they did nothing with it.
Yeah, it's always amazed me at the leadership at Marvel and DC, really, when it comes to comic books, about how lacking in foresight and creativity they have been. There was, Stan Lee, he had that, and he had a lot of guys, do an okay job after that. But really,
Julie Schwartz had it.
Yeah, Julie Schwartz had it. But Jim Shooter, he was like the last guy who had a decent vision, but people didn't like him because, hey, you're going to turn your work in on time or we'll run a reprint. How dare you? I want to go to the beach. And, so people didn't like him because he made the trains run on time. And, I'm sure he was maybe a hard guy to get along with because everybody seemed to not like him. But my gosh, when he was running Marvel, they dominated the comic book industry. They were like 60-some% of the sales. I mean, if Marvel sneezed, the whole industry went into a coma.
Yeah. Joe Quesada's rather...
Joe brought a lot of good artists.
Yeah, but Joe talked about DC, and it caused a little bit of a controversy the way he described them, because he's like, and he's not wrong. He's like,
that's true.
DC doesn't know what to do with Superman. He's like, that's being like a porn producer whose male star has the largest member in the world, and he can't get it up.
And DC said, "We'll never do a crossover with you again," and they haven't. Yeah.
Boy, that's talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face.
I mean, he wasn't wrong. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, though. When they've done some big crossovers before that, though. Yeah, some really big sellers. And that
got the point across.
That was the end of that.
Oh. So, anyway, Alex.
Yeah.
Tell us what's going on in the world of Cirsova these next few months, because I'm sitting here like my friend is sending me
about next year's, but we've still got a lot going on this year. We've just released our fall issue a few weeks ago. It has part 3 of Wildstar 6. It has part 2 of Dave Ritzlin's novel Vran the Chaos Warped. And I don't know if you are familiar with Dave, but he's one of the top sword and sorcery publishers in the indie scene right now. So it's pretty cool that he sent something to us like this. And,
I don't know his work. I do know the work of Troy Reiser, who has said, hey, I got a piece going to be published in Cirsova next year. I'm like, I know them.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a ways off, because it is next year. Basically, Troy came to me with this fantastic novella, after I'd already published one of his stories, or had one of his stories slated for publishing, and he's like, take whatever time you need to look at this, and I'm like, okay. Wow, this is really good. So we'll finally be running it sometime next year. I don't remember if we've got his story out in this issue or the winter issue. I think his first story with us is going to be in the winter issue that we've got coming out with the Sister Winter cover. Let me try to pull it up and just make sure.
I'm familiar with his work because we've published him twice. He made it into both compendiums here.
Yeah, people have called Cirsova Magazine a cross between Planet Stories and Weird Tales.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've ended up being. Yeah, Troy Reiser is going to be in the winter issue with his story Pick Trick.
I look forward to it. I haven't read that one. I'm sometimes aware he's doing a short film that he's working on with some rotoscope animation. And he's got some heavy hitting voice talent on it. not counting myself. I did one, but he's got Nick Searcy has done some tracks on that. And if you're familiar with Justified and some of the other stuff that Nick's been in, that was a pretty good score to bring him in.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of big stuff coming up this year. That's we're real excited to be able to share some of it.
Now, you do more than just the magazine too, though. I mean, because you and Michael work together on these Edgar Rice Burroughs and.
Well, we did the one Burroughs story. He's doing the art chronologies with somebody else.
Okay. I didn't know it was the same.
I've been the regular publisher for Wild Stars since I think 2019.
Yeah, doing a great job with it.
It was when we put out the first Cirsova edition with Time Warmageddon with the Tim Lin cover.
Wild Stars 3.
Yep.
And we did 3 variant covers that were first editions and all sold out. And then when it came time for the 35th anniversary, we did got together and had a new Wild Stars, a Wild Stars 4, and he did a re-release of Wild Stars 1, 2, and 3 in a matching set for all 4. And then on top of that, a huge and a beautiful Wild Stars omnibus of all 4.
That's still one of the coolest books we've published, I think.
That's a nice book.
Yeah.
It's heavy too. I just shipped one off yesterday to a guy from eBay, and
8 pounds.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
7 or 8 pounds.
Big book.
I used to joke that it was a lethal weapon in 15 states.
It's a cinder block. You prop a door open with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other big things that we've got besides Wild Stars is we've been publishing Jim Brayfogel's Mongoose and Meerkat adventures. We publish them serially in the magazine, but we've also been putting out collections. I'm still waiting on a box with all the copies of Volume 2 that will be used to fulfill the Kickstarter that we did a few months ago. And we also have been publishing some of the short fiction of Misha Burnett, who's one of our regulars. He does a bunch of
Misha on the channel.
Fiction. Yeah. And so we're also putting out his latest book, An Atlas of Bad Roads. We should be getting those books in the same time as Mongoose and Meerkat #2. We're going to be fulfilling Atlas first because, it's a horror book and we want to try to get that out before Halloween.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So Jim, Michael, and Misha are kind of the big 3 of Cirsova right now.
Thank you.
The Trinity.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we collaborated on beyond fiction and stuff like that was the resurrection of a bunch of lost science fiction classics. You probably remember me talking about on a few episodes in the past, the Cirsova classics. Old pulps that had just been forgotten, never been reprinted in a book form.
Yeah,
it's nice not to have to pay royalties, right?
Yeah. Well, it was an expensive project in terms of time.
Yeah.
It took a lot of time, a lot of work. And people ask me why aren't we doing any more right away? It's like, well, we need to sell more of the ones that we already put out,
It's not like you Xerox the pages.
Yeah, it was a lot of work on my part, doing the editing and checking the stuff and getting the layout and doing the project management. Michael, of course, had to be going through his pulp collection and causing irreparable damage to these magazines, some of them going for $500 on eBay and whatnot.
Yeah.
Get the scans for them. And, if the interest had been there on some of the later stuff, I'm sure we'd do more. And, that first one, I think it was the novelty of the fact that it was an early science fiction. Honestly, I thought that the gothic horror novel that we put out, The Sarah Was Judith, was the best of the bunch. I thought that was fantastic. But, after that initial bump that we didn't see as much buzz about Julian Hawthorne as I would have liked to have seen. Because I think he's a fantastic writer. I thought that his stories were amazing. And
yeah,
it was my love for his stories that was what made me say, all right, we'll do all of them at once here. Because Michael was like, we put out the one book, we should probably put out all the rest of them at once before someone moves in to try to poach us on these. And sure, that was a consideration. But if his other stories were not as good as they were, it would have been hard to be as enthusiastic about the project as I was. And so that would have made it while I thought.
Yeah, one was a reincarnation story. One was just a simple one. Judith Dances, about a guy who wants to adopt a little girl, and his wife's like, "Hey, you want to adopt that kid? You give me all your money." So he ends up. The reason it's called Judith Dances because he just vagabond, turned the world, turned the country, playing his banjo while his daughter Judith dances.
Doris. Yeah. It was Doris.
Doris, not Judith.
Doris.
Judith was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Judith. Yeah.
Doris Dances would have been great to adapt into a Hayao Miyazaki movie. That was the kind of story it was.
It had a twist at the end. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it had a great twist.
It kind of sounded like a Shirley Temple movie to me.
Well, one of his lines I liked about it, because this is when phones were brand new, and he was talking about the phone. It's a Pandora's box that you don't know what it's going to open up. And boy, I'll tell you what, he sure got that right long into the future. I mean, we're still opening that box.
Oh yeah. Shifter's talking. He prefers the offset look, I guess. He says it looks good as long as the plates last. Manga looks nice when it's printed offset because digital doesn't work for that. It's got this brush painted look to it that needs that. Woody's calling me a major voice talent. That's only because Woody has heard me on the mic stand on Friday nights when every once in a while I'm over there with Mike Walters and he's reading the Golden Age books. He went back to the very beginning to learn what comics were about. And we read them out loud and we do the voices. And it's a challenge. And I agree with you. Atlas of Bad Roads does look like a very intriguing collection. Had Misha on. We talked about that crowdfunder. It was a very good talk. I have to have him on for his next project when he gets to that point. So,
yeah, definitely.
Michael, we're at the top of the hour. Been here an hour. We haven't talked about what's selling and what's not yet. And what I'm taking in is a lot of not.
Yeah. I'm glad Marvel's really getting after it right now. They're starting to get their titles out on a regular basis. Their sales are really getting solid. I'm liking what Marvel's doing. DC, their Night Watch, one copy, new series, number one came out. One person wanted a copy. I have another guy who said, I'll take all number ones, but only one person is going to get a number two out of that series when it comes out later. I mean, Batman is just, dropped down. Now, I will say the regular Batman sales are starting to tick up a little bit, but, other than their main titles like Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, not making Green Lantern anymore either, Flash, Detective and Batman, they don't have much coming out that's a regular ongoing series. Well, those just outsell the others 10, 20 to 1. And all these miniseries restarts, you got to keep rebuilding the audience, and they've got nothing that's ongoing, and I was looking at the stuff that was coming out, and I was unpacking, and I was thinking to myself, I just see a production meeting at DC. Okay, let's have some new titles. Batman this. Okay, how about Batman that? Okay, anything without Batman in it, and just go dead silent. Because they just don't seem to know how to make any comics that doesn't involve Batman.
Yeah, speaking of Batman, I talked about the Flashpoint Beyond series, which is, the Thomas Wayne Batman in the alternate Flashpoint timeline. He doesn't know why he still exists, because he fixed everything so that Bruce's timeline would come back. And he's trying to do it again, but somebody's killed all the time traveler capable people, which turns out to be Martha Wayne, who's the Joker. Well, she's learned everything from Psycho Pirate, who's, the Psycho Pirate, the one who had survived Crisis and all that stuff. And she learned, that Bruce is supposed to be Batman. He's rambling in his cell. She's living in the walls of Arkham Asylum. Everyone thinks she's dead. But out of that, she got that, since she was killed on the real Earth, that there was a different Joker. And she's like, and I wanted to see what happened to him on this Earth, why he wasn't the Joker. She finds him. Now, mind you, everyone on, Flashpoint Beyond, they're all the same people that are in our world. Flashpoint Beyond, Oswald Cobblepot's not the Penguin. He's Batman's butler, works the casinos. But everybody's same name. Jack Oswald White is the name of the Joker, officially revealed in canon. So now all these origins that we've had where we don't know who he was, except for that teaser where Batman said, "Oh, I knew who he was 2 weeks after we first met." Like, you just never thought to tell anybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't matter who he was. He was the Joker.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I remember him saying that. And then I remember, like, then why did you ask the Mobius chair who the Joker is and find out this whole there are 3 Jokers business?
Except they weren't, because, they were just clones.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, the Mobius chair is not stupid.
All the epic plot lines that DC tries to set up and interweave and stuff, like, they always get tossed out the window through editorial. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, something I was complaining about the other day, like how they had Scott Snyder in Metal, and they had Mike Barr and Suicide Squad setting things up to bring back an original lineup of Batman and the Outsiders, and then New Age fell on its face, and they completely threw out the idea, and they ended up with this awful 1.5 year long series that all it was a denouement to the Tiny and Tech run.
Yeah, and I think that again, Jeff Johns had a lot of threads dangling that he was going to do something with, because that's one thing that Jeff Johns does well when he's writing for the DC universe is he finds these dangling plot threads throughout a character's history. Like when he did Green Lantern Rebirth, when he did Flash Rebirth, he's like, oh, nothing's ever been done with this throwaway idea here. Let's tie it in and make it important.
Yeah. But the thing that's finally pushed me back out of DC and the mainstream comics is how you keep getting these threads that it always acts like it's building towards something, and then it falls apart. It always falls apart. Like, in a way, 3 Jokers was something that fell apart. It ended up being this thing that was sold as it was going to be this huge thing, and it didn't matter. Same thing
we waited for like 10 years for that.
Rebirth. Yeah, Doomsday Clock and everything that Rebirth was setting up, trying to bring in the Watchmen stuff, it ended up not mattering because Jeff Johns' artist couldn't keep the schedule, and it took them almost 3 years to get out 12 issues, and they're like, it's not even canon anymore. It's just an Elseworlds at this point. Everything
it wasn't canon when it happened. I mean, if Julia Schwartz had been running the show,
it was going to be, but then Metal took off, and they're like, "This is the direction that we want to take the DC universe."
And Michael, you remember Ethan Van Sciver popped in on our show one night, and I was talking to him about this, and he kind of, he didn't admit that I was right, but he didn't say I was wrong. That Dan Didio changed the course of John's story. My whole thought was that with Doomsday Clock was that we were going to learn that Dr. Manhattan was the creative force behind the DC universe, because when we see him in there, he's talking about how he changes things, and I'm like, wait a minute, Dr. Manhattan cannot travel in time. He makes a point of saying he can't travel in time in Watchmen, so he can't go back and forth. What he can do, however, is if he's the pale blue hand that holds the stars and makes the universe, he can say, yep, it's screwed up this time, scrap it, start over again, live all the way through it, get to those points, and then make different changes. So he's not time traveling. He's just really, really old now.
Multi-person.
Yeah, he's living the universe over and over and over again, and making different changes till he gets it right. And that's what all the crises were. But it became something weird and different, and had all these big universe-shaking things happening in the story that didn't impact the other titles at all.
They never matter. But the thing is even though I got no love for Didio, what has DC been like since he's been gone?
Not
DC
any better.
An endless train wreck since they got rid of him. It was like maybe a 12-car train wreck while they had him, but now it's an endless train wreck.
Well, it's like George Orwell's Animal Farm. They got rid of the farmer who was running the place into the ground, and they didn't replace him with another farmer who knew what he was doing. They just
they've got a plan that's going to eventually manifest. I've heard they want to try to get a guy kind of like got Kevin Feige at Marvel, and they want to get a guy over at DC who will be the head of and unify their movies, their television, and their comics all into one unified idea. So they're trying to go in that direction. They're just not quite there yet. But if they're obviously looking to expand their distribution, print is not dead. They're still planning on keeping it going. If they're thinking about, okay, how can we sell more of these and keep this print being circulated? So that's a good sign.
Well, they have a toy. I know this is a weird way to bring this out, but they're doing these cover busters. Yeah, well, they're doing these cover busters or something like that, where it's like a Todd McFarlane toy, and it's coming with a comic book.
Except it's not a Todd McFarlane toy. It's like this cheap little tchotchke that ought to be like $2.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like the Todd McFarlane multiverse things, but there's a new Flash, and it's like a whole different design. I don't know why, because why would you do this? Why would you not want to sell the classic design that people recognize, rather than one that's not going to mean anything? But it's coming with a comic book that Todd's publishing for DC. It's the Flash #1 of that Flash in that costume. And it kicked off all kinds of wild speculation that Todd
I thought it was a reprint too. Are those are they all new comics?
Some of them are reprints. The Flash one is a new one.
I wouldn't even be able to tell based on the packaging that it was a new one.
Yeah, that Flash comic is a new Flash comic, but the Superman one is a reprint comic of I forget what issue, but
Batman
up till now they've been reprints
or something.
Yeah. Oh, and here is Jason's telling us that's written by Tim Seeley. So Todd's publishing it, but Tim Seeley wrote it. I forget who's doing the art. It's not Todd doing the art even, but Todd licensed the character.
Who made Nightwing gay? Which one did he make gay?
I don't know. Aren't they all now?
Flash ran too fast, and now everybody's gay.
He ran so fast he drew into the he ran into the pink spectrum. I cannot see. Yeah, I'm seeing too much about Tim Seeley gay characters, so I'm not seeing that. But yeah, I mean, well, shoot, it was just in the last Batman miniseries, which is supposedly in canon, that they came out and verified that Bruce Wayne was bisexual. So, go figure.
And that silence you hear is all the fans leaving the room.
Yes.
See, that's going to be their next big crisis. They're going to have to undo all the gay characters.
Oh yeah, it wasn't Tim Seeley; it was Tim Taylor. He's the one who made Superman gay, the new Superman gay. The Tim that wasn't in the CIA.
Legally distinct from the original Superman and Superboy gay.
Yes, absolutely. Which is the whole, again, that's the whole reason why they did it, was theoretically get away from that trademark payment to the Schusters and the Siegels.
What is Superman? Those people, what hound them to their grave? I mean, that's just, they owe them a huge debt. It just does not portray the company in a good light to see the way they've handled that whole thing. We stole it, it's ours.
He got those in Batman Forever when Joel Schumacher was directing. That's when he got those, Shifter. Remember Nipplegate? Oh
yeah, I mean, I'm watching that, and then here comes Batgirl. She doesn't have nipples. Like, come on.
Where's the fairness in this?
Yeah, look at this. Where's our part? Where's the stuff for the straight people?
Oh man. Yeah, that was a bad time in comics.
That was a bad movie. I mean, the funniest line in there was Arnold at one point going, "Oh," that that's about the only thing I even remember from it. It was awful.
Yeah,
I heard that it was not safe for him to go to conventions for years after that. They couldn't give him enough security.
I bet it was a horrible movie. Anyway, we're going a little long. Probably a good time to start wrapping up. Alex, anything you want to leave viewers with? I have put your link to your site right below here, so people can hit you first.
Yeah, thanks. The spring issue or the fall issue is out now in print. Fall issue is out now in print, and it'll be out in ebook on the 15th.
So available through Amazon.
Yeah, available through Amazon. You can get hardcovers through Lulu. You can find links to all of our books on our site.
And that link again is below. And then right below that, you'll find the link to Michael Tierney's thewildstars.com, where you can learn all about the Wild Stars, all about everything he's been doing as a retailer for more than 40 years experience. And if you're really interested in it, you can determine what breed of dog you're not allowed to raise in Maumelle, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion that's going on right now.
Mike is a city councilman, so he's in the politics side of things too.
Yeah, that one's been a big issue here this last week, especially. But yeah, then also becoming Robert E. Howard. I finally figured out how to work that InDesign, and I'm just building pages the way I've got Volume 1 already half built.
Excellent. So, what do you prognosticate being the publication date on that one?
Well, I'm hoping, of course, then I got to go through two editors. I've got one guy, because I did a build on Volume 1 once already in another program, and I've had an editor working on that one for like a little over a year, and he's about halfway. So we've got another editor now we're going to be bringing in, and so that's going to be the big thing. It won't be when will I get done, when will the editors get done.
Yeah, because you crowdfunded this, so there's a delivery date that was You remember that thing you tell me about expiration of expectations?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is they kind of messed up on that when they put that Kickstarter delivery date up there. Because I told them, I said, well, listen, I can get this done in 2 years. That would be July of this year, which I got it written by that time. And but they said, well, what's the earliest you think it get done? I'll try to push for maybe as early as February. I don't know if it's possible, but I'll try to do that. And it's a good thing I did, because it still took me to the July, pushing to try to do it in February. And so what did they put on the Kickstarter? Available in February 2022. And I'm like, don't do that. As soon as I saw it, I said, you got to get that out there. Oh, it'll be fine. And, they've owned it. They've said, look, that was our mistake. There's a placeholder. It shouldn't have been up there. That was our mistake. We should have done that. And, but still people are like, where is my book? And I don't want that expiration of expectation. We kind of went through this with the Edgar Rice Burroughs art chronology, because you had to go through several editors on that one. There were a lot of delays there, and then the printing process. Then there were delays with the slip cases, and so that took a long time to get out. But I've met every deadline. It just all the other things have to go through too.
I hear you.
Now,
Jason says he needs to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, last time I built it on another program, and all they had to do was mirror my program. Well, that didn't work out so well. So this time I'm learning the InDesign, and I'm doing all the build myself. So that's taken a whole process out of the middle of this. So hopefully that'll speed things up some.
By the time you get your next chronology going through, you'll be a pro at it, and it'll just snap right together.
I will feel like it, yeah. 1,500 pages later.
Jason says he's got to get his print mag moving forward. Jason is the brains behind sci-fi4me.tv, and they are looking at not bringing back Starlog itself, but something like Starlog used to be. I know Jason was looking at trying to acquire the Starlog name, but Starlog said, yeah, we're still kind of using that on something.
I don't know what.
Yeah, it's all digital, but I think they have a couple of other magazines that are not Starlog, but might still have the name behind them. Anyway,
one final thought on the Starlog, and a funny story. I remember, I've been writing my Wild Stars since the 70s, and original concept really started with the Man on the Moon, and I was like, hey, we go out into space, it's going to be like the Wild West, Wild Stars. I think I'm going to write a series of stories based on that. So that's how long ago I was thinking about the plan. Was with the moon landing, and so I've had some novels circulating around. Another one called Wild Stars Rising, not the same story as the Wild Star singular Rising that got printed recently, but so I'm looking at an issue of Starlog. I got these novels circulating around with Wild Stars in the title, and I'm looking at this issue of Starlog, and it's talking about how George Lucas is getting ready to come out of a movie called Star Wars. I'm thinking that's just a little too similar to my name. But then I was looking at another listing in that same issue, in that same page. It was talking about there's this other movie getting ready to come out. George Papard, the guy who played Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica, called Damnation Alley, based on Roger Zelazny's novel. I said, well, George Lucas, who the heck's this guy? Star Wars. Nobody will even know who that is in a couple of years. Damnation Alley. That's going to be the movie people are going to remember.
Oh, yeah.
Here. Well, I got right that something was going to be remembered, but I got it wrong on which was which.
I'm glad you didn't put any bets on that one.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks for coming in tonight and talking comics for an hour and some change. It's always a lot of fun. Alex, good to have you here. Welcome anytime. Anytime you want to pop in, just tell Michael, send me the link. You don't have to tell me, just share. Well, folks in the chat.
Yeah.
Always. Folks in the chat, thank you so much for being here tonight. We don't have a show without you guys. We're just that podcast falling in the woods otherwise. And of course, as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.